Do you make all the money that you want to make? If not, tune in and find out how to make more.
You are listening to the Prosper Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosper Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Thank you for joining me. Greg McCollum here with another edition of the Prosper Law Podcast. As you know, Prosper Law is a coaching company which we coach lawyers and teach them how to basically get more time in their life, more free time, and also how to make more money, how to scale their business and turn their law firm into a business, turn their law practice into a law firm, turn their law practice into a business that runs on systems and people, basically. And when you do that, then you get more free time. And when I first started Prosper Law Coaching, I had some thoughts or beliefs about criminal defense lawyers, which have turned out not to have been true necessarily for a lot of people. And I'm glad that it isn't true, because when I first started thinking about it, and I think one of our taglines is, take your law firm from $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. And that was because that was my experience, is that I was averaging a little over $200,000 a year for, I think, over a decade or more. And so I assumed that was the case for other lawyers. And I assumed that other criminal defense lawyers who really, when you look at criminal defense lawyers, they have a passion and a drive and a belief about being a criminal defense attorney that you don't see necessarily in other areas of practice. And I think that's unique. And I think there's several reasons for that. I know it's true with me. When I was going to be a lawyer, when I decided, in the 9th grade that I was going to be a lawyer, I never saw myself as a tax lawyer. I didn't see myself, working on Wall Street. I never saw myself as a divorce lawyer. It was criminal defense all the way. That was the only thing I was interested in. And I couldn't even imagine being a lawyer and not being a criminal defense trial lawyer. So there's a passion for that with criminal defense lawyers. And I really don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I know a lot of family court lawyers who are really good at it, but they don't say they like it. Many times they say they really dislike it. And then I've never really known a lawyer that is so excited because he or she's going to go write, 2 estate plans for somebody. And those are important. Those help people. They change people's lives. I've never seen a lawyer that gets excited about, we're going to do some more real estate closings. It's pleasant, but it's not passionate like criminal defense. But what I've found with criminal defense lawyers, which is interesting, is that they don't have any time. It's not that they don't have business. It's not that they're not making money. I've talked to a lot of lawyers, and they're over $500,000, $600,000. I've talked to a few that are, right at $1 million. And I know other lawyers that clearly are criminal defense lawyers, and they're well over $1 million and maybe multiple millions. But those are not necessarily my target audience. Those aren't the people that I set the company up to necessarily help. And I thought that the criminal defense lawyers were going to be practicing criminal defense, maybe family law, maybe doing other practice areas, maybe some transactional areas to try to pay the bills. But what they were passionate about is criminal defense. And what I found is that a lot of criminal defense lawyers do only criminal defense, and they make $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year. But they do it by hustling. They do it by not really having help. They do it by not delegating anything. They really don't have a staff. They don't have a group of people that are solving problems for them. They're doing the sales calls. They're doing everything, okay? And they're running ragged. And so the question is if that's sustainable. Now, the good news is for those people, when I hear what they're doing, it's obvious to me, what needs to change. It's obvious to me the simple things that I can start implementing with them and see them change. And it's very interesting too, and it's very fulfilling too for me to see those changes happen in their life. And it's just a simple fact that there's certain things they just don't know. And the smart ones know they don't know, so they come to either my program or another program to learn what they don't know so they can succeed and grow through that. Now, one of the things about selling is that, and that was the original way I was going to start this, is do you struggle to make sales? And if you do, it can change your life if you learn how to do it. And that's what happened with me. And I know that I hated making sales because I thought salespeople were, dishonest. I thought salespeople were there to sell something that somebody didn't necessarily need or want. What I've learned since then is that really a sales call is a very significant event in somebody's life. Because, for instance, if somebody's in my law firm and they've been arrested and they're trying to decide what they're going to do to fix their life and get their life back on track, that's a very, very, connected kind of personal meeting. And once I learned how to do a proper sales meeting, the people break down. And they break down because they're at a point in their life where it's a crisis. If they've been arrested, it's a crisis, especially for the people that we represent, because I think 75, the best we can tell, 75, maybe higher, 80% of the people we represent never been arrested before. And so this is traumatic. Just the arrest has sent their life, off the rails, and we're trying to get it back. And so in those intake calls, in those intake meetings, especially for serious cases, we really kind of dial down into it. And the way we do that, oftentimes the people that we're meeting with, they just break down. They start sobbing, okay? And the reason they're sobbing is because it's becoming real in their psychology and their mindset of how important a decision this is. And so our job doing intake, my job if I'm doing the quote sell, is to determine what the person wants or what they want to avoid, how important that is to them, and what will happen if they don't take the action to correct it. That's it. And if they're in a situation where, it's not going to make any difference, then my job as a salesperson with integrity is to say, well, this is not something that we think you should hire us to do. This is not something that's really profitable for you. And I really can't think of any situations where somebody's being arrested or investigated that we can't help. We almost always can. Now, we don't do post-conviction relief anymore, and I've done a number of them successfully. Like I got a guy who was doing life without parole on a murder case. I got him out. I got him a new trial. There was another guy that was doing a long stretch for trafficking heroin, and I got him out. I got him a new trial. Now, there are other cases, and I don't like that work. I don't do it anymore. We refer all that out. But it's good for an example because I've met with several parents who because we would charge a fee to evaluate it. And so we look at the case, we look at the transcript, we look at the evidence, we look at, how they got in prison, what the validity of their trial, the quality of their representation. And in that situation, I told the parent, I don't think you should hire us, okay? Because you want to get your son a new trial, you want to get him out of prison, and looking at it, the likelihood of success is not good. On these other cases, where I got people out, I read the transcript, and I saw in the transcript, they were like in one case, I remember the murder case, there were like 7 or 9 instances of clearly black letter law reversible error. And not only was it reversible error in the testimony that the state presented, but it was also reversible in the closing arguments. And I remember talking to the deputy DA that tried that case, and I said, listen, I think you should just talk to the attorney general and just agree to give the guy a new trial. And he said, why would we do that? And I said, well, these are the things that you said in the trial, and they're all reversible error. So I don't see how this case is going to hold up. And he said, well, I didn't say that. I would have never said that, because he knew what I was saying was reversible error. And he said, I would never say that. I said, well, it's in the transcript, and the court reporter put your name on it as having said it. And those things were some things like they had found a weapon that the guy had a weapon on him when he was arrested that was used in the murder. And the prosecutor said that weapon had several bodies on it, okay? In other words, that murder weapon hadn't just killed the guy in this case. That weapon had killed 2 or 3 other people in other cases. So it had multiple bodies on it, okay? Well, guess what? That's reversible error. The other thing they said is that when they interviewed him about the guy that was dead, he didn't show any remorse. He had no indications of any remorse or regret. Well, guess what? That's reversible error. You cannot say that. And there were 2 or 3 things like that were in the transcript that just, jumped off the page at me. And so in those situations, I'm like, you need a new, I think you'll get a new trial. It's almost impossible to get a new trial, but I think you get a new trial. And in that case, he did. Now, in those other cases, I look at it and this doesn't exist. The lawyer did a either really good job or a good enough job. And the evidence there is also piling up, and the witnesses said that the person did it, and it's not going to work. Now, in that situation, I recommend that you don't hire us. You're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to go through this. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to do it, and we're probably going to lose. Now, an interesting thing about that is that sometimes you have to understand why the person is hiring, okay? And for years, I thought it was results. In other words, your son's in prison, you want him out of prison, you pay us a lot of money, we get him out of prison, that's a successful transaction. There's more to it than that, which it took me a long time to learn. I had somebody that actually had to teach me, a coach had to teach me this, and I never understood it. And still, I don't think many people understand it. In that situation, and in this particular case, this is one of the last ones I did, because I just won't do these anymore. Not because of any reason, it's just I don't like doing them, and I have to do them myself, and I don't want to do that. So she said, well, I want you to do it. And so I'm thinking like, well, that's dumb, right? Like, why are we going to do something that's hopeless? But then I understood later, because this other person that coached me taught me this. Her motivation is that she's doing everything she can to help her son. Because perhaps when he first got arrested and was in trouble, not living right, she let him go on his own. She didn't hire somebody to represent him then, which always kind of irks me as a lawyer. It's like, oh, something terrible happens. Now you're going to spend all the money to try to unscrew it, right? So, but here's her dynamic. He's in prison. He's calling her collect. He's sobbing. He's in horrible conditions, and horrible conditions in prison. That's a whole nother topic. And so she cannot live with herself if she's not telling him that as his mother, she loves him. She's hired us. She's doing everything she can to help him. And that in and of itself is a motivation. Doing everything you can to help somebody in 100% losing battle still is a motivation for somebody to do something. All right. So in terms of selling, though, can you help? Do you have a solution? This is the solution. This is what it costs. This is what we will do. Do you want us or not? No, I don't want it. Then that's the end of it. Or no, we can't help you. Then that's the end of it. You're never going to sell something with integrity if it won't help them or it's not going to work, okay? You're not there to close the deal. You're not there to close the transaction. You're not there just to put money in your pocket. You're there to give a profit to the person that's giving you the money. In other words, if they pay us, $35,000, $40,000 because they're charged with a sex crime, which is either bullshit or false or whatever, and they want to stay off the sex offender registry, which is a life-altering sentence, or not have a felony conviction for a sex crime, then that's life-altering. It's the best 30, 40, 50,000, whatever it is. It's the best money they spent in their life. Just dollar for dollar, they make that back 20-fold, okay? So that's a huge benefit. And if we can do that, and we've done it many, many times, and we can usually tell if we can do it, and sometimes we think we can't do it, but we end up doing it, the value there is extraordinary. We're not taking advantage of them by taking the case. We're not taking advantage of them by taking their money. They're making a profit in a lot of different levels. And that's a true sale, all right? And I remember when my dad ran a Firestone store when I was growing up my whole life. And in the Firestone store, they sold appliances. And you could go in there and buy, a refrigerator or a washing machine or something like that. And I remember, like, at one point, my mom had a washing machine where the agitator, instead of going side to side, it went up and down. And I remember I'm just watching the thing run, and it was amazing because of how efficient it is, because apparently with washing machines, the rotation of the clothes through the soapy water is what cleans the clothes. And the more it rotates up and down through that water, the more it washes and the better it is. And so the up and down agitator was, the best washer. And I remember the salesperson, I won't say his name, and he was, older guy, probably in his mid-50s or something, and he was a sharp salesperson, at least I thought he was. And so people came in, and for whatever reason, they didn't have any of those agitators that went up and down in any of those models. And I don't know why the washing machine company had changed or something, and they were always merging, but they were the side to side. And the people were saying, well, we wanted one that agitates up and down, and this is side to side. And I'll never forget this. And he said, well, they stopped making the up and down agitators. And that just in the industry, that's not true. They could have gone to another store, bought a different model, different company, and got one. He said they stopped doing that because it wears the clothes out. These are better because they won't wear your clothes out. They'll still get clean, but they won't wear your clothes out. Now, I'm not saying that's 100% false, but afterward, I asked him, so like I'm a college kid, and I asked him, I said, really? That wears the clothes out? Because my mom has one of those. I think it's terrific. And he goes, no, I just told them that because we didn't have one to sell them. That's what people think of salespeople. That's not selling. That's conning, okay? That's getting over on somebody. This is why people hate salespeople. It's why people hate doing sales, because that's what they equate it with. That's what they think it is. Now, there's another thing I wanted to talk about briefly that I'm running out of time, and it has to do with a conversation I was having with a friend of mine, and she has a family court law firm, and she was talking about telling people who she is. That she said, don't they have to know who I am before they're willing to hire me? And I said to her what I say to my sales team all the time is like, well, that's marketing. And personally, I don't think you should market in a sales call. In a sales call, you should say, in a very quiet, sincere way, what do you want? What do you really want? Sometimes you have to ask that question over and over because people have trouble saying what they want because no one ever asks anybody in life, what do you want? So what do you want? And then why do you want that? In other words, what's the benefit that you're going to get when you get that? Or what's the problem if you don't get it? And then that's the second part, or the third part is, well, what will happen if you don't get it? In other words, if you don't do this transaction, you don't hire the solution for your problem, what's going to happen if you don't get it? Now, in that setting, I train my people, and I hear them violating this all the time, is don't tell them we've helped 100 other people just like you. Don't tell them we got the smartest lawyers. Don't tell them we're the best. That's not what they need to hear right now. That's marketing. Okay, we do have super smart lawyers. We do have a dedicated team of paralegals and legal assistants. We do have a group of people that care deeply about our clients. We do have a group of people that are all in on the mission. We do have a group of people that are dedicated. That's marketing. And the idea is if they called us, they already believe that, or they would not have called us. That's marketing. And so the idea, in my mind at least, is you don't market during a sales call. Now, if somebody asks a question, have you done a case like this? Do you know what you're doing? What kind of results have you gotten? I'm not talking about that. That's responsive. And most people, amazingly, really don't ask that question. They've already know that we've got the ability and the authority to help. That's why they reached out to us. So I got more here, but it looks like I'm out of time. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.
If you want to know more, go to prosperatlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.